When I last spoke to you after a Norwich City game, I said that Norwich were in all kinds of bother. And at that point, it felt like we'd reached the biggest low in this Premier League campaign. And yet what I forget about Norwich City in the Premier League in recent seasons is that we've got an unbelievable ability to find even lower lows. And that's exactly what happened this weekend. Norwich City falling 2-1 to fellow Premier League strugglers Leeds United at Carrow Road. And that now brings up the 10th game of the Premier League season without a win for Norwich. We sit bottom on 2 points and we're now 8 points adrift of safety. And I was critical of Daniel Farke on the last video, and I think it was clear my stance on where I deemed his future to be. And for the long-term success of not only him, but more importantly, the football club, it felt like Daniel Farke's job was simply untenable. And the only argument really to keep him in post, and I listened to that argument, was that we've got a really important month coming up. Leeds, Brentford, Southampton, Wolves, and that he was the best man to guide us through that month. And if we didn't get through that month with adequate points, then we would look to change manager. And the important run of games has started with a defeat to Leeds United. Now, on paper, a 2-1 defeat isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's the manner of these defeats that seem so far away from what we were used to under Daniel Farke. Even in the last Premier League campaign, this is a side who are lost. They don't have an identity. They're confused. They're desperate. I saw absolutely nothing from Norwich City at the weekend to give me any hope that this changes. And the arguments that Norwich City might not break Derby's record of 11 points are genuine now. And it's difficult to say, if you extrapolate the first 10 games across a season, then that's an accurate representation, because I don't think it is. But genuinely, hand on heart, in this current regime, can you see us winning a football match? The argument that Norwich have played all of the best teams in the division is valid, but I don't like our mindset with that we can simply accept defeat. We saw Crystal Palace go to Manchester City at the weekend and win. We saw Brighton go to Liverpool on Saturday and pick up a point. We've seen Brentford play Arsenal and beat them. These things happen, and Norwich City have beaten the big teams in recent seasons. And the quotes from Daniel Farke to say that them 3 games were simply not winnable, I feel are incredibly defeatist. And it also angered me that Daniel Farke described Sunday's performance as a good performance. Are these the standards that Norwich City have fallen to? That is deemed acceptable? Because what I saw were 11 players incoherent with any kind of game plan, simply trying to float in a sea that is kind of engulfing them, against a Leeds side who were missing their best players. They were without Patrick Bamford. And yet they still came through victorious and, to be honest, relatively comfortable. We had the majority of the ball in that first half, and yet we never felt like we were going to score. We knocked it about passively. I think Leeds were happy to sit off for the first half and then try and get Rafinha and Rodrigo and players like that into the game in the second half, and that's exactly what they did. And we've said this so many times under Daniel Farke in the Premier League. We huff, we puff, but unfortunately we rarely get the job done. Farke has now had 48 games in charge at Norwich City. He's won 5 of them in terms of Premier League games in charge, I may add. 48 games in the Premier League, 5 wins, 8 draws, 35 defeats. In that time, we've scored 29 goals. We've conceded 100. That's a goal difference of minus 71. And out of the possible points on the table, we've picked up 23 across a season and a quarter. 23 points across a season and a quarter, and yet this man seemingly still has full job security. And this isn't just a Daniel Farke rant, because there are obviously other issues at the football club. The recruitment has not been good enough at Premier League level. Now, there is something to say that when you're operating on a Premier League shoestring budget, which we are, and I know we spent big in the summer, but in the grand scheme of things, we are still dealing with peanuts here, that it will obviously be tougher and your strike rate is going to be a lot less. But it's the seeming kind of unconnected playing style and what we've gone for that really confuses me. We've spent significant amount of money on wingers, and we're not playing wingers. We've got a striker in Timu Pukki, who I know we haven't recruited this summer, but we're trying to play this long ball style into a striker that I think scored 1 headed goal for Norwich, possibly 2. I'm still not seeing enough from Josh Sargent, and this isn't me digging Josh Sargent out because he's trying his best. I think the one good thing about Sargent is his work ethic is clearly admirable. I'm hearing arguments that he holds the ball up well. I don't think he does, and that he wins headers, and I guess that's debatable. But if he does win headers, there's no one running in behind him. It all feels incredibly disjointed. And the joy of Daniel Farke, and this isn't to take anything away from him, he's given us 2 of the best seasons that we've ever seen in supporting Norwich City. But that was the thing. We had Farke ball, right? We had played this majestic style of football. And now we've just abandoned it. I think he's got scared. I think it's reminiscent of when Alex Neil got thumped at St James's Park and kind of just went into his shell a bit. And I think we're seeing that with Daniel Farke. Now, the thing that not necessarily frustrates me because it's admirable in certain aspects, but I cannot think of a single football club in the football pyramid in England that would give their manager this much time to try and change things. I genuinely think at this point, if we don't sack Daniel Farke, it renders the rest of the season utterly pointless. I think we're down, and that's hardly throwing myself without an outrageous opinion there. We now have to win 3 games more than the rest of the teams below us, and I can't even see us winning 1 game at the moment, let alone 3. And it just felt season-defining at the weekend. I think there's been a lot of games this season that have been deemed must-win. Watford, Brighton, Leeds. And we're just so far off winning any of them, which gives me huge worry. I think the fans have seen enough, and I think it's incredibly difficult to win fans back over when it gets to that point. We've seen it so many times before. It happens up and down the country. And I just don't want this to turn into what we kind of saw with Nigel Worthington, where all of his good work's undone because he's just held on too long. And Daniel Farke is obviously not going to walk away. He's got a very financially rewarding 4-year contract. He'd be stupid to walk away from that. But I think if Stuart Webber had respect for Daniel Farke, he'd say, look, we really appreciate what you've done, but there's no evidence for us to continue to allow you to coach this first 11. And I think what's the quote? You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain is kind of true in this scenario. And once again, I must add, and I don't necessarily have to add context to this because we're allowed to have nuanced opinions, but by me saying all of this doesn't take away from the fact that I am sure that Daniel Farke is an incredibly astute head coach, and as I said previously in this video, has given me and all other Norwich City fans 2 of the best seasons in our history, and for that we can only be grateful. But this is a man who is well out of his depth in the Premier League, and we've seen that over a sustained period of time now, and I think we've got a lot of players who are possibly out of their depth as well. You just look at Leeds at the weekend, and we just haven't got a player like Rafinha who can change the game in an instance. And I think we probably had that with Buendia, and I think we had that with Oliver Skipp, and we maybe have that with like a Max Aarons or a Todd Cantwell who's in the under-23s now, and possibly like a Christos Jolis, but we haven't seen anything from him because he hasn't been given the chance. And I guess that's partly down to budget and the fact that we can't go out and spend, or we don't choose to go out and spend 20-30 million pounds on a player. But it still is incredibly frustrating. And as I've said multiple times before on this YouTube channel, I think Norwich fans would understand if we were to get relegated. But one, we have to see improvement from last time we were here and we've regressed. And two, we have to do it in our way. And we're not doing either of them things. We haven't improved. We've got significantly worse. And we have literally no identity. And it's switching from week to week. We're going like 5 at the back, and then we're going sort of 3 at the back and pushing our wing backs really high. And then we're playing 2 up front, and then it's 1. We've got no midfield. I think Matthias Norman is an excellent footballer, but the ball just bypasses him. It's like we're playing piggy in the middle. We're just launching it long, and then it's getting launched back at us, and then we're just hoofing it long again. If you're going to play that style of football, you need defenders who are comfortable with the ball at their feet, and I don't think we have any of them. I think Andrew Omadamabeli is a wonderful asset, and I'm so chuffed he got that headed goal at the weekend, and what a brilliant header it was. But you can't expect a 18, 19-year-old to kind of change the course of the season. You've got a goalkeeper in Tim Krul who is good, but I don't think is entirely comfortable with the ball at his feet. We're just confused. We're an incredibly confused football side who are scared of the Premier League, and will continue to lose football matches on a consistent basis in the current format unless things change. And that's really sad. I don't take any joy from saying all of that. I really don't. But Norwich fans deserve it. The football club deserves to at least give the Premier League a go, because this constant bouncing back between divisions isn't sustainable. It's not going to last forever. If we want to be a regular Premier League football team, we need to just sustain ourselves here. And it is incredibly difficult. I understand the context around all of this. Financially, we are not able to compete, but we are able to compete on different levels, and we're not competing on any level at the moment. And I think the other argument is the fact that the people that want Daniel Farke to remain in charge of Norwich City say that he's the best man to bring us back to the Championship, back to the Premier League if we were to go down. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. We will be going down this time without an Emi Buendia, without an informed Timu Pukki. Aarons won't be here. Cantwell won't be here. It will be much changed. And I am yet to see Daniel Farke do it on a consistent basis without a special mercurial talent of an Emi Buendia. We've just always had better players in the Championship than anyone else, and I don't think we will this time. I don't think we will. I think it'll be very different, and that worries me hugely. So other than that, it's all good. Let me know what you think. I was so disappointed with what I saw on Saturday. I can't lighten the mood on this one. I saw nothing to give me any kind of hope, and I think everyone I've spoken to are of a similar mindset, unfortunately. There we go. There'll be a podcast on Wednesday and plenty more content throughout the week. Thank you so much for all of your recent support, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.